Hey everyone, after more than 15 years in the business, I finally got a book published. If you want to do me the biggest favor in the whole world, please head over to mikeyop.com and buy a copy. That's MIKEYOPP.com, and the book is named Maurer, and it's about psychics and the history and future of the universe. I wrote it, and I think you'll love it.
Hi, this is Mike Oppenheim, and you are listening to Coffin Talk, Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. This week we have Tony Maurer. He is a retired industrial electrician, old Marine, disabled, Catholic, ex-scoutmaster, sapiosexual, ammosexual, who has lived in the same place since 1985. He's logged 150,000 miles on a motorcycle, and now he's an atheist and photographer whose current passion is writing a movie about ghosts, pixies, and vampires. Oh, and it's about death, so obviously he's a great fit for the show. We're going to discuss almost everything he listed, as well as what he thinks happens when you die. And so without further delays, Tony, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm living the dream.
Awesome. And where are you living the dream?
Oh, in Pennsylvania.
And how old are you? Where did you grow up? And what generation, if any, do you consider yourself a member of?
I'm 65. I have to say this with apologies to your generation and every future American that I'm a boomer and we have screwed your lives over.
What makes you say that?
How did my generation go from being the free love, anti-war movement of 1968 in Woodstock to our current culture where it's a bunch of old white people who are worried about their Social Security benefit and boomers are doing great, and millennials and whatever, the Gen Zs or whoever, their life is brutal because they have to pay for people like me.
You know, that's really interesting because it's not that I disagree with what you said. It's just I think it's really easy to blame people for getting older and becoming scared and worrying about themselves. But I can't think of a generation where that didn't happen to them yet. So as a member of the generation right up against yours, I'm a little hesitant to call you out and be like, yeah, you're right. Because I have a funny feeling my generation, if it's not already doing it, is about to do it. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think your generation was really uniquely like had an about face, like turned around?
Oh, I don't understand the turnaround. It baffles me why people that went to Woodstock now want to go and raid and go to the Capitol and cause an insurrection. I just don't get it. And that's my generation that's doing it. It's not your generation or Gen X or anything. It is my generation was the one that did I have to call it the Crusades because I believe the Crusades are still going on. And the Capitol riots was just another crusade. So, and I just don't understand how this happened to a generation from 1968 from Woodstock. How we've reached this point where like we want to sleep with guns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I definitely have thought a lot of the thoughts you're saying out loud, and it's just that I'm in a precarious position where I'm trying to bridge a what seems to be a huge divide between younger people and people of your age, and you know, I'm also baffled, but I can't help but wonder if maybe this is just part of like what happens when we develop systems like, and I'm not even going to say it's capitalism. I think it's just any social contract system, but I'd rather let you kind of more talk about it. So what in your mind, what change would have to take place for your generation to maybe retreat a little bit and go back towards that summer of 68 attitude?
Maybe I think everybody should drop a little LSD. Come on, you don't have to do it 100 times. Just do it once, and it'll change your perspective on humanity. And Timothy Leary, who was the tune in, drop out, or whatever his words were, I don't remember exactly. But like he set psychiatry back, generations because LSD was developed to be used used for treatment for psychiatry. And Timothy Leary just like set it all back.
Mhm.
But this country now, how we've gone this far and this strange, I just don't get. And part of it is religion.
Yeah, so like speaking of religion, in your bio that I read, you were formerly Catholic, now you're an atheist.
Once you're a Catholic, you're always a Catholic. It's like being a Marine. Once you're a Marine, you can't not be a Marine.
I want you to dig a lot deeper into that because I don't understand that. I don't disagree. I just don't even understand that because I'm not a Marine or a Catholic. So what? Can you explain that?
Do you know any Jewish people like that you're friends with?
Oh, I mean, my wife is Jewish and my mother-in-law.
Okay, can you ever not be a Jew?
You know, it's funny. I think you're right. A little differently though is the Marines because you enlist in the Marines. So I still believe you, but can you explain that connection as well?
Well, yeah, I lived in Canberra, Pennsylvania, in a very old house. My family moved here in like '68. Like our town had, we could have been any television show about 1970 being a kid growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my reason to join the Marine Corps was to get out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Because it was exceedingly boring here. High school for me was awful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was bullied a lot. So I joined the Marine Corps to get out of here. I didn't go to war, but I would have.
And yeah, because I was gonna say you were born what in like 1962,
58.
or 58. Okay. Yeah. So I mean,
Oh yeah, but I would have gone.
that's what I meant. That's
You
why
know,
I was like, oh, I shouldn't say
gone.
dodge because that word is pretty loaded.
I was a mortar man, you know, a radio man, board observer. I would have called bombs on anybody that told me. I was a Marine. I was trained to kill people, and I would have done that.
And you said in your bio that you were disabled. Were you disabled as a Marine, or are you disabled from a different experience?
I'm one of the contaminated water Marines. The Marine Corps at the Camp Lejeune, the dry cleaning dumped their dry cleaning solution into the sewer system, or not in the sewer system, in the storm drain, and that leaked into the water supply. And then the helicopters and the base that had fuel stored let all that water leak into the fuel or into the water supply. And I spent 3 years drinking like benzene and jet fuel. So I'm a little nutty.
Wow, I've read about that. I had no idea. That's I'm really sorry. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. That sucks.
I joined the Marine Corps to get out of Pennsylvania, and I went there, and they brainwashed me, and I was a mortar man, and I would have called bombs in on myself.
So are you unbrainwashed now?
Oh yeah, I'm a different person.
And how did you unbrainwash yourself?
Oh, through learning, educating. You know, I grew up, I was a white supremacist, you know. I really believed that like black people were going to ruin the country. Being brown was like, you know, I was raised that way. That, you know, the browning of America was the ruining of America. And that's what's taking place today.
What was like a book or a person who influenced you to start questioning that?
Oh, once I was I never knew a black or a brown person. You know, the closest language I ever heard other than English was Polish. And that's because I went to a church that like actually had Polish masses, you know, as an altar boy. And they had Polish masses, and I would be an altar boy during Polish masses. They would have them like once a month. And you didn't have to know Polish because there's really no change in service. It's just the language. The priest just looked over and like pointed or whatever. So
like, did you meet like a prominent like person who was of color, or did you like just pick up a book?
Oh no, well in the Marine Corps, once I went into the Corps, I met other people.
Okay.
And of Mexicans, I had a corporal who I really like admired. But when you like looked at his back, it was just nothing but like huge scars because he was in an LA gang. He said he got caught in another gang's territory, and back then, carts and antennas, and that was the best weapon you could find on the street was just to snap an antenna off a car and beat somebody with it. And he got caught in another gang's territory, and they just ripped his back to shreds, and he had like 200-300 lashings on his back from car attendants. You know, by talking to this guy, he joined the Marine Corps, and that's one of the things the Corps does is they like to get the head of a gang. You know, it doesn't matter which gang, but if you can get the head of the gang, you maybe get 50% of that guy's gang to go into service, into the Marine Corps. And they like that. These gangs in LA and New York City, you know, they like that structure and that dynamic of the leader and following that. And that's why Marine Corps recruiters target gangs.
I'm really appreciative of how honest you are, because I think it's really hard for someone to just open up on a podcast and say, I used to be a white supremacist and now I'm not, and I'm kind of calling out my generation. So I'm into what you're throwing down. I do want to get to the meat of the episode, which is discovering how you went from a Catholic to an atheist. So I'll just do the shortcut question, which is, what do you think happens when you die and why?
Hey everyone, if you're a fan of the show, please head over to mikeyop.com and click the subscribe button. It's the best way to support us, and it's free. That's MIKEYOPP.com. Thanks.
What happens when we die? Nothing. We die, we're dead. It's just like before we were born. Were you afraid before you were born?
No, of course not.
Okay, well then why would, if you're not afraid of what it was before you were born, why would you be afraid after you're dead?
Well, I think the traditional answer to that question is my consciousness was born, but my consciousness will remain after I die. That's what someone else would answer. That's not my answer. But why are you so confident that there is no consciousness after this?
Well, because there's no evidence. No, if I'm presented evidence that, like, I have a consciousness after I'm dead, I'll believe it. But, you know, I've not been presented evidence.
So I want to push you a little further, though, because like you, I've done psychedelics a lot, and unlike you, they opened me up to think that there might actually be more after this than, whereas before I didn't think so. So I'm curious, you've done probably more than me based on what you said. With all those psychedelic experiences, how has that not provided you with evidence that there might be more?
Psychedelics, I've done so much LSD when I was young. And I'm not one of these people say I did it every day or anything, but I have, like, sat on the beach and, like, woke up 3 miles from my car with no clothes on and no idea where the fuck I was. What made me really, one of my turning points was a preacher when I was a scoutmaster and I was doing Scout Sunday. And this preacher, like, ask everybody to pick up a missalette, which Catholics would call it. I don't know what this church called it, but it was the pamphlet to read whatever. And my pew where I was studying with all the scouts didn't have it. So I grabbed the Bible and I opened it up to where he was talking. And this preacher, who you would know his name, started to read, and he changed the main word in it like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And we get done and we're down at Scout breakfast, and he comes and he sits next to me to eat because he's a preacher and I don't know. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, why did you change the reading of the Bible? Because I didn't have the pamphlet that everybody else read. I had the Bible. And you changed, like, the main word that, like, you changed the whole thing around. Why did you do that?" He says, well, to get your point across, you have to, like, change the wording. And I'm like, so that's really all religion is like the preacher gets up and reads from a book and change the words to get whatever his point is? He says, yeah. So I was just so baffled, and everybody in the town of Benton, like, and this town still is fighting Civil War. Look up the Fishing Creek Confederacy. That's our town's claim to fame, is imaginary deserters of the Civil War.
Wow.
Like, this is Civil War fake news, the Fishing Creek Confederacy. And this town is still fighting the Civil War here. There's more Confederate flags around here than there is in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I've ridden my motorcycle through those places, and There's more Confederate flags here than there.
Wow, that's really sickening and disheartening, and it's just hard. It's hard. I've traveled all around the country. I've been to every state. I lived in Pittsburgh, which is, Pennsylvania adjacent, I would say. Like Philly and Pittsburgh are like these bubbles living amidst it. But I drove through it a million times. I stopped all the time, and I even stayed sometimes in the middle. So like I know exactly what you're describing. Do you have an ability to reach those people since you're from where they're from and like help them, or is that just beyond anything you could pull off?
Oh no. These people are so entrenched that if for me, and the other thing is everybody has a gun here. So like, and there are people here that like are just waiting for the new civil war so they can start shooting liberals and Democrats. And you only have to go onto YouTube and bring up Ted Nugent has a whole thing on YouTube where he talks about it's time to start shooting Democrats in the street like you shoot stray rabid dogs. And these people are fine with that kind of thinking. They're fine with school shootings. I don't understand why people are fine with school shootings.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I don't either, as the host of this podcast that's designed to help bring people together. And I'm really appreciative, again, of just how honest you are about all of this. So I am curious, do you have any hopeful, promising, like positive thoughts about any of this? And you don't have to. I'm not trying to corner you. I'm just curious, like because you are very smart and you're very thoughtful, and I really like the way you think and how you describe how you think. So I'm just curious, do you see a way out of this?
Oh no, I think we're seeing the last American president. I don't see a way out. I see this as the last American president. These people, I mean, I drove by the gun shop today in Benton, and the parking lot was jam packed full, 7 cars on a Thursday afternoon at 3:30, and there were 7 cars parked there. The owner parked in the back, but there were 7 cars parked in there buying guns. I talked to I mentioned I'm an ammosexual. I didn't used to be. I used to hunt all the time. I loved hunting. But now everything is gone. We've like hunted things out, and invasive species have killed a lot of things around here. And I lost my desire to kill things, and I took up golf. That's what you do when you lose your desire to kill things. You take up golf because it's the thing. Golf and hunting are exactly the same. Not to digress. So I used to do that, and one of these Trump supporters came here this year when Kate was here, and her and I were sitting in my garage, just like chatting, and these guys pulled in, and this guy tried to kill me.
Wow.
So now I sleep with the shotgun next to my bed because this guy and his brother lived down the road from me in the 80s, and they became meth addicts. And then they got arrested, charged. They joined the Marine Corps. They became MPs. Both of them became military police. Guy tried to kill me. Anyway, well, I don't want to get into that part.
No, everything you said is interesting, and it's also like how we get big pictures is we listen to little stories, and then we use like, a lot of different parts of our faculties to put things together, and we get understandings without specifics sometimes more than we get them with specifics. So I actually love your approach to describing your world. How would you like to go out on this podcast with reference to death and our audience? Connect it all up for us.
I think that death and sleep goes back to mythology. Hypnos and death, I forget the Greek name for death, but they were twins. And sleep and death were twins, and their brother was Morpheus, who was the god of dreams. And I think that when we die, nothing happens to us, but the things we do in our life, like just me talking to you, is going to create a ripple. And when people listen to this, it's going to create a ripple. And then maybe something they learn from you or from me talking about these things will create another ripple in the pond or the universe or whatever. But I don't think we have this energy that we get reincarnated to. I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't think that happens. I think when we're dead, we're dead. But the things we do now when we're alive affect everybody, and they can go on for generations, just like me reading about mythology from 4,000 years ago. That's a ripple effect that I want to pass on. And that's all we are. We're just passing on ripples of time and our life. And nobody's going to remember you or me after 3 generations. I mean, in Mexico, they're digging up 6 generations these people pay to have their ancestors buried. And after 6 generations, nobody can afford to pay. And so they dig up the bodies and they put new people in them.
Wow. That was a very profound answer, and the whole interview was profound for me, and you're exactly right. It is the ripple effect. Every time I think about quitting doing this podcast, which is not anything, it has nothing to do with the quality of our guests or the quality of our audience, it just has to do with time management. What keeps me coming back is exactly what you just described, which is that I see this ripple happening, and especially in my own life, and I just see how listening to intelligent and interesting people like you and being connected to you makes my life better. It makes my life actually much better. And I love knowing that amidst the people you described, you exist. And whether or not you can change them, you certainly can create a ripple effect. Thank you again for coming on the show. I still encourage people to always believe in the ripple effect you described and to do their best to ripple goodness through the universe, whether or not people around you are doing awful, awful things. It doesn't matter. Try your best to be good. And thank you, Tony, for reminding us of that and for coming on and sharing your world and your time with us. And to everyone else, we will see you soon.